Oh, I just want to check my sound level, make sure I'm working.
Yes, we can hear you, Fred. Can
Thank
you
you
hear
very
us?
much. Yeah, I got you, Wendy.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think we have everyone for now who will be taking part in the meeting. I see that we have Bob online. Good to see you, Bob. Second. And hi, Tom. Okay, there are any other folks coming in. We'll call to order right at 1:31. My apologies. I'd like to recognize that we're conducting our business today on the territories of the Seashot and Coopatchesit First Nations, and to ensure that, in fact, because we're coming to you live in a hybrid format, some of us are coming from other territories as well, be it the Lekwungen-speaking people, maybe the Kwakwaka'wakw people, depending on where Tom is, and the Coast Salish people as well, or beyond. That being said, I would state that we're having our meeting today in a hybrid format, which means that we have individuals here in the office as well as people online, and that we are live broadcasting this meeting on YouTube and embedded on our website onto YouTube. And one thing that happens there is that you can view, and there's a chat box there. However, we don't monitor that. And therefore, if you have any official comments or questions that you would like to send to the ACRD that are coming out of this meeting, please send an email to responses@acrd.bc.ca, and that would be the best way to do it. So in terms of introductions, I would just like to introduce that we have in the room today our Vice Chair, Director Dave Haggard, Director Susan Roth, as well as myself and Director and Mayor Marilyn McEwen. And finally, we have Renee LaCourcier, representing Sprout Lake as an alternate. In the room today for the staff, we have Daniel Cyan, as well as Wendy Thompson, Mike Erg, and Terry. And is that it for staff? That's it for staff. Okay. Okay, with that in mind, we do have the approval of the agenda. I would like to add something at the very beginning of the agenda. However, just a statement coming from what had occurred on Shot territory yesterday. So it's just a quick 2-page statement that I'd like to read out on behalf of the ACRD, but also just as a bit of a message coming out of that. And I'm not certain we have any extra materials or items. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, if I could have a motion to adopt the agenda, please. Thank you, Director Beckett, seconded by Director Roth. Okay. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Yeah, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so before we get to the public consultation report on the financial plan, before we get to the real business, I'd just like to acknowledge that on the 21st of February of this year, yesterday, Wamish, the Chief Counselor, Ken Watts of Seashot First Nation, held an announcement of the first set of results in regards to the search for remains and grave sites at the Alberni Indian Residential School, AIRS, site and surrounding area. The results were themselves tragic, but they're only the beginning of the story. One that needs to be told despite the pain, because of pain. And while the numbers themselves are harrowing, the impacts are not behind us. I would remind and point out that we have had members of this very board who are survivors. And every Indigenous member, and beyond, of this board is 1 or 2 degrees separated from someone who is directly affected by institutions such as theirs. Too often there are those who mistake intergenerational trauma for culture. And when it comes to when it has been our disconnection and severance from our family, culture, language, and economy that has fundamentally damaged the destinies of communities and peoples up and down the West Coast and across this great democratic experiment called Canada. These challenges are things that cannot be addressed merely by individuals. Redressing the pain inflicted and the damage done will take the focused efforts of communities and governments going more than halfway, more than half the time. If we are to be a country that owns and celebrates the contributions of Jonas Salk or Terry Fox, we must also own the legacies of Duncan Campbell Scott and the literal litany of acts by and for this country that I won't go into, but I think we know what we're talking about. And while our friends and neighbors and relatives attend to the health of their hearts, minds, and spirits, we should and will do what we can to ensure a future that includes space for Indigenous people. Space not only in an arm's length future, but for people in this place now and in the present, and for everyone silenced and forgotten in our past. We can do these things. It'll just take pressure and time. And I think we can all commit to that. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge what had occurred yesterday and send our support and care and ensure that we continue to walk the path in a good way. And with that, thank you. So normally speaking, I try to move forward with going into the agenda, but since I seems to have derailed things a bit, I'll keep talking so Director Minions can head to her seat. It's okay. And see if there's anyone who would like to add anything on behalf of their nation or their community. Don't feel pressured if you don't have to. It's just something that I think needed to be addressed given what had happened yesterday. So going once, going twice. Okay. So thank you for that indulgence. And we will move into the agenda now. So with that in mind, we do have a presentation from Terry. However, it's not like a delegations and presentation type of thing. It is in fact something different. So she's not limited to 10 minutes. I would love if she was limited to 10 minutes, but there's no way we're getting through any of that. And plus, getting through the presentation will be very helpful. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome Terry Fong, our Chief Financial Officer, to present the financial plan. Thank you, and please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm here today to present the 2023 to 2027 financial plan. Oops, it still says open house on there. This is the same presentation that we provided to the open house last week in Cherry Creek. Provided a modified version of the plan specific to Bamfield last night at Community Affairs. Next Monday night, we will present to the Sprout Lake Community Association, and we are also going to attend District of Tofino's open house for their financial plan. So really just trying to get out and engage with the community as much as we can as we go through this financial planning process. So today's is going to be a very high level overview. We're going to run through basically the highlights of this year's plan. So just as a reminder, each year we must create a 5-year plan by March 31st, and we must have a public consultation aspect for it. This is just one component of that. And the plan has to ensure that our expenditures do not exceed our revenues. In a regional district model, we must ensure that areas are only charged for the services that they are provided. So it's really important to think of the siloed approach and that each service stands alone and we cannot transfer between those. This must include an allocation of staff time and benefits. So we need to make estimates of what staff time is going to be provided on each service so that those services are charged for that time. And okay, so how did we develop this year's financial plan? We took the operational costs of our existing services. We then considered the 2021 to 2024 strategic plan. The new board has not really had an opportunity to review that plan yet, as they were just started in November. So we're still going off the old plan and we'll look to update the strategic vision here coming up later in 2023. We have asset management plans for all of our services that have infrastructure, so we definitely use that to guide us. And then again, making sure we have an allocation of resources that achieves our outcomes, but also has some slight flexibility for any sort of changing social, environmental, or financial things that will happen during the year. The 5 focus areas of the strategic plan include the economy and COVID-19 recovery. The second one is communications and engagement, new and existing infrastructure, emergency management, and partnerships and alignment. So definitely looked at the specific items in the plan to make sure that we try to address as many as we could in this financial plan. In terms of service highlights, we'll start with planning. So agricultural initiatives are a big focus area of the regional planning service, and we have an agricultural support worker that helps with the development committee and have a number of grants that they have leveraged to provide services in the area. We are focusing not just on agriculture, but also aquaculture. So really looking at the West Coast as well and the coastal garden operator program in addition to that. And then the other thing is really leveraging partnerships. So a grant with through the province with North Island College to do some meat processing will be delivered at the Dot Plus here this year. So lots of wonderful things going on in the world of ag. Other planning priorities for the year are completing the zoning bylaw update and then initiating official community plan reviews for Banfield and Long Beach. All 6 official community plans will be updated for the rural areas in the next couple of years, but we're starting with Banfield and Long Beach in 2023. And then there is a significant amount of development applications coming through the regional district at this time. So really just trying to keep up with the amount of applications is another department priority. In terms of bylaw enforcement, we do complaint-based bylaw enforcement for zoning and regulatory bylaw infractions, but we proactively engage on short-term vacation rentals. And in 2022, there was 58 new enforcement files opened. Building inspection was incredibly busy in 2022. So we had 127 building permits issued for an approximately construction value of about 27.3 million. The building inspection department also provides wet or wood stove inspections and some support to the First Nations and City of Port Alberni through contract when needed. We are really trying to move this service towards a fee-based or have the building permit fees pay for the work in this area. And that was definitely, the fees in 2022 definitely supported that approach, and we look for that to be continuing in 2023. In terms of our emergency programs, we have 3 emergency programs that are for different areas, but the overall priorities for emergency programming are to complete a hazard, risk, and vulnerability assessment prior to doing some updates of the emergency plans. We want to complete the West Coast evacuation route plan, which is for Long Beach and Banfield. Continue to do some emergency operations center and emergency support service training. There is going to be an update or a replacement of the Provincial Emergency Act here later this spring. So we need to wait to see what that means for the regional district. And as always, we want to continue the public engagement on emergency preparedness. Fire service is another area of major focus for the regional district in 2023. In previous years, we've really been focused on the infrastructure or the apparatus and the halls and the trucks. This year, we're really looking to support and preserve our personnel. So recruitment and retention of firefighters is an ongoing concern, and we're working hard to find innovative ways to support. However, at the same time, those asset management plans and the long-term sustainability of these services is challenging as the costs for the departments are high. And we had a fire services review done in 2020, and so we're continuing to try to implement those recommendations. And we have 3 fire department services that are governed by the regional district. That's for Sprout Lake, Banfield, and Beaver Creek. In terms of waste management, the focus for the last couple of years has really been the rollout of the 3-stream diversion in both the Alberni Valley, or I should say the City of Port Alberni, and on the West Coast. Now we're turning our attention to a solid waste management plan update. So there'll be significant engagement with the communities to update what our strategies are for waste reduction moving forward. We updated the plan last in 2017, so it's really needing a revision now that we've got that organics diversion completed. The other part is we are just finishing the commissioning of a new tipping area and organics facility at the West Coast. And finally, we have a 5-year lease, but not long-term tenure of the Alberni Valley Sort and Go Center, formerly the Alberni Valley Landfill. So continuing to work with Sasha, the province, on getting long-term tenure of that site. In terms of airports, we have 2 airports, the Alberni Valley and the Long Beach. At the Alberni Valley, we need to do some fuel system upgrades and then complete some obstacle limitation surface clearing. And then at both airports, we're really looking at implementing a market rate assessment on all of our leases out there. So we had a study done in late 2022 and now working with the leaseholders to implement those new rates to generate more revenue for those airports. And at the Long Beach Airport, there is a wildlife fencing project that is underway currently that is with some federal grant funding. We're working to develop our partnership with Taloquit on developing a vision for the airport moving forward. And to support that, we are hiring an airports project coordinator, which will do a little bit of support to the Alberni Valley, but mostly focused on the West Coast and looking at a land use and development plan. In terms of water systems, we have 3, one in Bamfield, one in Beaver Creek, and one in Millstream, just in the Long Beach area. In Bamfield, we are hoping for a grant for a West Submarine line replacement and are also really looking to do some leak detection and mitigation as there's a lot of water leakage in that system. In Beaver Creek, we're doing a minor amendment to the DCC bylaw, just to development cost charge bylaw, to reflect the new construction costs, and then wanting to do a storage yard upgrade. On Millstream, they did some upgrades in 2022, really looking for a more in-depth maintenance plan for the long term and just trying to build the capital reserve. It's a very small system with very few connections, so it's challenging to build money for that service. Salmon Beach is an area in Long Beach as well, a recreational community. So they have 5 services that they run, and the main highlights for that would be that they are looking to get a new pumper truck for their pump and haul sewage system out there, and then they want to do some interior road upgrades and ditching on their interior roads. Regional districts don't historically maintain roads, but because of the remote nature of this community and how it was built, it is the responsibility of the ACRD to maintain those on behalf of the province. In terms of transit service, we have the Alberni Valley Custom Transit, or the Handy Dart service. We're doing an expansion of hours, or at least we are hoping to do one. We're waiting to find out if the province will support their end of the funding. And that will be to address peak weekday trips. And then also wanting to do a regional transit study that will be led by BC Transit during the year to talk about the future of transit in the Alberni Valley and potentially beyond. In the West Coast, we are trying to get that transit service implemented, having a few missteps with the province not expanding to new services at this time. So we're going to work with Watt Consulting to identify and investigate some alternatives that could be used in the meantime. So looking to do that this year, but there will be no taxes raised in 2023 for this service as we wait to find out the future. Parks is very active in people using the parks, as well as we're getting lots of grant funding and really trying to get going on those things. Exciting news on the agenda today is the grant award for the West Coast Multi-Use Path, which is the missing connection between District of Ucluelet and the National Park in the area of Long Beach. So we got some grant funding, which is the last piece of funding that we needed to construct that. So we're looking forward to proceed with that. And then some other projects, such as getting some management plans done to guide the future development of these parks, and some signage. Sprout Lake Marine Patrol is planning on running again this year. We've had a 3-year federally or Transport Canada supported grant that ended last year to help support the cost of this program. We do have a new application in, and we'll have to wait to see if we get that funding. If not, we may have to modify the level of service that we provide in that, but are planning on running with 4 students this summer and needing to replace the pontoons on the boat this spring. In terms of administrative services, we continue to work on our communications program and policy. We hired a communications program or coordinator in 2022. So really looking to get a social media and public engagement policy, as well as the new website is hoping to go live here in March. We are also responding to the new legislation related to the freedom of information and protection of privacy. And then a couple of initiatives that we are talking about are the looking at this building and what the future is for it and potential alternatives moving forward. So we've budgeted to do that, as well as looking at a primary care recruitment and retention initiative. And as always, we continue to need to do IT upgrades and security improvements to improve our overall security of our system. We have 5 proposed services that are in various stages. The Alberni Valley Aquatics Facility proposed service will be very active with a consultant leading some engagement in 2023. The Bamfield Liquid Waste Management proposed service also has a consultant and will be having engagement here this spring. Cherry Creek Waterworks, we have applied for a grant in conjunction with the Waterworks District to talk about their governance and whether a potential conversion may occur in the coming years. So waiting to hear on that grant before we work with them on that project. West Coast Emergency Coordination is somewhat of a quiet service this year as we're waiting for the new Emergency Program Act to come out to determine the future of emergency programming. And then finally, Alberni Valley Regional Water is one that has sat dormant for a couple of years or many years now. And it was the potential of talking about drawing water from the Sprout Lake instead of the current source for the city of Port Alberni. We'll circle back on that one this year and make sure that we determine whether we want to proceed with that or not. We haven't had that discussion with this new board yet. As I mentioned before, grants are a very large part of how we're doing business these days, and we continue to leverage both the Canada Community Build Fund as well as other grants to assist us. We received about $5.7 million worth of grant funding in 2022 and are hoping for just over $10 million this year. Our grants are for supporting operational needs. Many of our grants are for infrastructure projects, but we've also had some success with getting grants to investigate the feasibility of new services. So ways that the public can provide input. All of our information is available on the ACRD website. All of the board and committee meetings are recorded and live streamed to YouTube. There is actually on the website a separate 2023 to 2027 financial plan page that has the links to the full plan and all the other presentations. And then if anyone would like to provide comments or questions using the budget at acrd.bc.ca email would be a great place. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. So with that, maybe we'll give it a few moments for the email address to be used. We do have one person in the gallery. Mike, did you have any comments or questions? You might want to use the podium, yeah. Just make sure you use the red light.
No, I don't have any questions. I was at the meeting at Cherry Creek Hall. Went over there. Was a few people there giving questions. But I think I answered my questions answered there. So it's good so far. But I'll have more in the future, hopefully.
All right, thanks. Just wanted to make sure you had a chance because you're here. You're the only one here, so thank you. Okay, so with that, maybe we can open up for any comments or questions or motions to receive. Do you have to receive it? How does this work here for this item? You don't have to receive it. FYI. Okay. Okay, Dr. Haggard, go ahead.
I just want to thank Terry for coming to Cherry Creek Hall because it was really more important this year than ever because Cherry Creek doesn't currently have a representative. So thank you so much for making that effort.
Yes, you're welcome. We actually really were surprised and happy at the number of people that we got out and felt like it was very an effective forum. So it was nice to get back to in-person engagement because we haven't got to do that since 2019. So it definitely changes things for us for sure. And we'll be looking to do it again in the future.
I think engagement is even better than 2019 or 2018 or 2017. Yeah, so I think getting back is really good. One thing I did neglect to do is just to ask if there's any attendees on the meeting and whether or not that individual might have any comments or questions. So Wendy, please go ahead.
There was one attendee, but it appears they've dropped off. So
We knew we were going to ask. Okay, with that then, I think we can move on to the next agenda item. Unless there are any other comments for clarity. We, as the board, have more than a few kicks at this can, so I think we're okay. That being said, we'll move into declarations. Item number 4. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest, apparent conflicts of interest, or gifts exceeding $250? I was going to say $1,000. $250. Yes, that's next year. It's not even safe. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the adoption of minutes. I believe we have a pair here. Yes, we do. So the first one is the Board of Directors meeting minutes for February 8th, 2023. Director Roth moves,
I'll second.
seconded by Director McEwen. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? And motion carried. Next up is the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for February 9th, 2023. Moved by Director Roth, seconded by,
I'll second.
thank you, Director McEwen. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried, thank you. That brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations, the proper ones. And I'm wondering if the Constable O'Connor is actually in attendance today. No? Please go ahead.
no, Constable O'Connor sends her regrets and will plan to present at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to the next agenda item then, which is correspondence for action. This is a request for maintenance of the Great Central Lake sign. I don't know who would be speaking to that. Is that Daniel? Please go ahead.
I can speak to that. We've received through Director Cote, some emails just asking that we consider upgrading that sign. It has been in place for some time and it's showing signs of wear and tear and is in need of some maintenance. And so with that, staff put forward a possible motion for the board to consider.
Great. Does anyone have any comments or questions or emotions? Thank you, Director Roth. Seconded by.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director McEwen. Any comments? Dr. Minions, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wonder, I have no issue with passing this motion to instruct the sign to be maintained. I'm just wondering if this is something that really is required to for the board to direct, or if this is just an operational, the staff maintains signage and other assets as needed without our needed direction.
Please go ahead, Danny.
I think in the future, it's something that we'll just have for a schedule. But right now, given that it's not on a specific schedule and given that, in my experience, signage has often been the source of significant debate at a political table. And so it's just important to flag that the work would be undertaken and so that everyone is aware. It will likely spark other people noticing the signs in their areas and saying, hey, what about these? So it's to be anticipated, but right now they're not loaded into any automatic asset management.
Thank you. And that's really my point is when we let someone write a letter and then we take action on that, we create kind of like an additional complaint-based system. So appreciate that that people have written letters and that there's a maintenance issue that we certainly need to get to. Just want to make sure that we acknowledge that staff has that role to, decide what needs to be maintained and when, and that the public coming to us and writing a letter it's not best practice for us to determine, what's the highest priority for maintenance as a result of that. So minor issue here, but just process. Thank you.
Dr. Haggard, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jack. That was going to be my next question. We have a big, beautiful sign that on the top of the hump that needs some TLC that's owned by the regional district. Can we maybe put that on the list for one day to freshen up?
Maybe we could have a motion to direct staff to prepare what did you call it? A timetable or schedule for maintenance? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, we can certainly create a schedule that identifies the various signs and give you estimates as to when we would aim to tackle them. And again, why come to this table is that every time the sign is either refurbished or replaced, particularly replaced, usually there is some debate around what it could look like, what it should look like. And what we don't want to do is go down the path of replacing without at least some sort of framework or policy that says these are the guidelines for materials used and looks that we should endorse. Very often we end up in debates around whether we use natural products, I'll say, wood and stone versus plastics and things that last longer. And so we'll come back with a report that shows you which signs we have and maybe we can spark some larger debate and budgets on that.
I say we bring back neon. Okay. With that in mind, so maybe we can just take that as a discussion and direction for just bringing it back rather than a motion. But I think that fits with the spirit of what is intended here. Okay, that brings us to the next item, item 8, which is correspondence for information. Did we vote? No, we didn't. Sorry. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Thank you. And we're on to go. Next item is correspondence for information. Is there anything anyone would like to pull out? I see we have 4 separate items. I have 2 that I wouldn't mind speaking to, but it really depends on anyone else dealing with thunder. Seeing none? Okay, I would just state that I'm really quite interested in the applicability of the Rural Advisory Program that ICE-T announced, because I think that's relevant for the region. I don't require answers now. Just how can we take advantage of what's been on offer? And I would just note that the Island Rail Corridor decision is coming up, and that we have in the past had supported the idea of the Island Corridor Foundation's idea of restoring rail service across Vancouver Island. And I think that's still the case. So we still maintain our support there, but I would note that it's getting to 0 hour. And I think a lot of activity is happening online as well as in discussions in and around. And just wondering if anybody had any comments. If not, that's okay. Our position is already stated. So, Dr. Minions, go ahead.
Thank you. I know that it is timely for sure. And I just want to express from the city's perspective, our strong support as well for Island Corridor and funding request. And I know that we have already submitted support. So I'm assuming we, don't need to express that again. However, I just wonder if there is anything that you think, Chair Jackie, could do additionally.
So the chair of the Capital Regional District had contacted the chairs and I think the CAOs asking if the chair's signature could be added to a collective letter to the Premier and I think to the federal government. I can't remember the name of the minister, the relevant federal minister. And since we did have a history, I asked Daniel and Wendy what we should do. We have a history of supporting, so I just directed that my digital signature file be added to that document or sent to them to use in whatever looks good. There may be other opportunities for some sort of joint lobbying. I think the decision is fundamentally federal at this point. So, I mean, in the event that the CRD comes up with the money to help me go with Colin to Ottawa, I don't think there's much else we can do. That being said, I do think that improving the rail service to a point where we can use it once more is just, it makes a lot of sense economically from an island and regional perspective, especially if we can start if we can keep bulk moving and keep it off the highway, that would be great. But there's quite a bit of work before we even get All right, I think I'm just going to retread everything if I keep going, so I'll just drop it now. Thanks. Okay, if we could have a motion to receive the correspondence for information. Thank you, Director Roth. Seconded by Director Beckett. Any comments, further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Okay, that brings us to request for decisions and bylaws, of which there is only one. It's an item for Banfield Community Park Building. So I'm not certain who's speaking to that. So it's Jenny. She just turned her video on. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the Centennial Park building is aging and the Parks Commission had budgeted to replace the roof this year. Our grants coordinator found a lovely grant that could help us basically leverage that money to do other renovations for the building, including renovations for the washrooms and windows and all sorts of access lighting, up to, I believe it's $150,000. So we are making a recommendation that the board support our grant application.
Great. Any further comments or questions or motions? Director Beckett, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jenny. Last night at Community Affairs, this was identified by Terry and Jenny, and the community is thrilled to think that there's a possibility that this funding may come for a badly needed upgrade and renovation of the building. So with that, I would like to make the motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the application of grant funding to a maximum of $120,000 for the renovation and climate change resilient upgrades of the Banfield Community Park Centennial Park Community Building from Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program with Infrastructure Canada.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director McEwen. Any further comments? I think the only comment I have is that's great. I love the work that gets done by the Banfield community around the park. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us into planning matters. Thank God, it's only like 2:07. Okay. I'm scared, guys. The other shoe's gonna drop. Okay, 10.1, Mr. Erg, please go ahead. 10.1A.
I'll talk really slow if you want.
That would make me feel better. So,
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to start with the first report we have on the agenda here is a timeline for the rezoning bylaw review project, and also some timelines for dealing with a number of development rezoning applications. So I would note the table on page 83 outlines potential public hearing dates, board meeting dates. And I would encourage and ask especially the electoral area directors, please review this and make sure that those dates work for you. We haven't, we haven't reached out to individual directors to see if those dates work, but we would need to know as soon as possible, if there's any conflict or directors aren't able to do that. We are also working to process as many applications as possible. And as noted in the report, some of the applications that we've more recently received or are still waiting on more information would potentially have to wait until after the board adopts the new rezoning bylaw, the new zoning bylaw, if the board endorses this timeline. After in the report and what we proposed for a timeline of staff, after the April 26th board meeting, this is the proposed cutoff date for all development applications or development rezoning applications. And after this date, after this cutoff date, the board wouldn't be reviewing them at the board meetings until after the new zoning bylaw was adopted, but staff would continue to work on applications. We'd be able to hold advisory planning commission meetings, work with agencies on referrals and things like that. But the board wouldn't be able to deal with any applications. And the reason for that is we amend a zoning bylaw and we'd be in the process of bringing in a new zoning bylaw, and we can't amend something as a development application when the entire bylaw hasn't been adopted yet. I think that's my summary, and I see there's some questions, so I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Chair. I noticed there is no public hearing for Beaufort scheduled. I see Beaver Creek and all the other electoral areas, but I do not see Beaufort in your list. Is there one planned for that as well?
Yeah, so the Beaufort public hearing for the official community plan, we held and are going to be considering that later. So we had two columns in that table. One is the public hearings for the OCPs. So we have completed the OCP updates for the zoning bylaw for Bamfield, and then we held the Beaufort one earlier this month. And then the other column is development applications. So those are just related to development applications that staff feel we can finalize by April 26th.
Go ahead, Fred. Oh, you're
Well, hold on, I'm muted here. Just a quick follow-up. Is there a public hearing for the zoning bylaw review for Beaufort? Specifically that, because I don't see that on your list.
So, sorry, no. So there would not be a specific public hearing for each area. It would be one public hearing for the entire zoning bylaw, because the zoning bylaw will apply to all of the electoral areas within the regional district.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Are we confident enough to move the motion here?
If I could just add just a little bit of context. So as staff, we put this timeline together. But we all, and we need to we want to, make sure that the board's okay with this timeline. But we also need to start communicating this with the applicants. So for the applications where we're hoping to hold public hearings or have adoption before the 26th, we need to let them know that they need to get any conditions of rezoning in. So things like wastewater practitioner letters and things like that. But we also want to communicate with the other development applications we have, just to give them a timeline so that they will know, when we would anticipate working with them. We are shooting for the adoption of the zoning bylaw for the end of July. And I would, note, I didn't mention there's would be a special board meeting on the 12th of July is part of the staff report as well to get that done. And then the idea would be, once we could actually develop rezoning applications and private applications to the same 26th board meeting to consider first reading for them. So I don't know if that helps the board lay it out or sort of understand what we've laid out.
Thank you for that. Dr. Roth?
Yeah, I'd like to move that the Board of Directors endorse the anticipated zoning bylaw review project and rezoning application timeline as presented February 23rd, 2023.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Lucosia. Any further comments? Seeing none. Oh, Dr. Boyko, go ahead.
So just a quick question, Mike. Thank you, Chair. The public rezoning application public hearing, is that for the zoning bylaws or is that something else? I just want to clarify this.
And which date? I don't have the table right in front of me right now.
So this is where I see that Bamfield, Beaver Creek, Sprout Lake, Cherry Creek, but not Beaufort have the rezoning application public hearing.
Right. So those are. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say,
please go ahead.
Where it says rezoning application public hearing, those are for private development applications.
Oh, so ones that are already in progress then.
That's correct.
Or okay.
So
will there be a chance for the members of the public to have another public hearing on the revised zoning bylaws?
Yes, there will be a public hearing on the revised zoning bylaw, and that would be June. What we've got in here, it's on June 28th would be the zoning bylaw public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
I'm wondering, Director Boyko, should we have a discussion about maybe having some specialized communications to make sure that residents and citizens know that this is coming up? Like just kind of a reminder of like 2 weeks before, a month before, 3 months before kind of thing. Yeah.
That would be awesome. They're not raising pitchforks like they did in 1973, but a lot of the comments online and the comments I'm getting are almost at pitchfork level. So a good explanation, such as some of the stuff that's already been started, like how many chickens, little graphics and that, making sure everyone knows what's coming at them, that the world is not ending, but some things still could be discussed, like double stacking containers and things like that. People want to have their voices heard. Thank you.
I was -8 in 1973. Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Please go ahead.
So we can definitely put out information that shares the dates so people are aware. We likely pull out any private applications and just keep us focused on the larger issues that pertain to them. I'll also flag that we have received comments from people as well around when we put out the sandwich boards with information on public hearings, and we try and be within the 2-week window. And the reason for that is that staff have found that when we go longer than 2 weeks, people either forget, and when we're shorter than 2 weeks, people feel that they haven't had enough time. So somewhere around the 2-week mark is really where we hit the sweet spot for sandwich boards, but it doesn't mean that we can't put the full schedule out online and people can at least start their planning. So we'll turn our attention to that.
It's very hard not to nerd out and talk to you about the research that economists have done on how people are incentivized to get rebates for the tires and that sort of thing, or the nuances of nudge theory and behavioral economics. So I'll just say those things out loud and hopefully it'll just happen magically. That being said, any further comments? I could go on and on. Dr. Siga and then Dr. Roth. You are muted, Dr. Siga. You are still muted, Dr. Siga. Okay, we'll go to Dr. Roth and then we'll go right to you after. Dr. Roth?
Yeah, I'm just curious if we put the signage out for Beaver Creek for the OCP this coming Tuesday, I think it's on Monday, this week's next year, February 28th. Would that be something we would put the sandwich boards out for? Beaver Creek OCP public hearing?
Yes.
We
Yes.
need them
So
out there, they're not there.
they're going out right now. They're just done. They're just being put out.
Oh, cool.
And as Daniel had mentioned earlier, there's some timelines around when we can accept information. So we're trying to match the sandwich boards going out, letting people know about the public hearings, so that when they send us emails, it matches the timelines that we can accept that input. So we do have sandwich boards for a couple of upcoming public hearings that are going out. So yes, we can certainly you can share the public hearing ad, which is on the website. We'll make sure we get that to you.
Not that I want to curse the valley or anything, but you may want to cooking spray the signs so the snow doesn't adhere to it. Next up, we have Dr. Siga. Please go ahead.
I thank you for your patience. I had my little hand lighted instead of the mute button. I'm wondering if any individual property owners are going to be specifically having zoning change that will affect their current buildings and use of the land?
So with respect to the new zoning bylaw, there would probably be some. We have where staff are aware that somebody's zoning is going to be changed. I'll use the land use contracts as an example. We have reached out to the property owners and let them know and actually work closely with them on developing what zoning will apply to their property. We have had a number of conversations with other property owners around, what would make sense as far as a zoning change on their property or not. Where we have really small lots, so things, for example, that are under 0.6 of an acre, they will be affected or, potentially affected by their, by the setbacks. But we've over through all of the open houses and meetings we've had in advisory planning commissions, we've communicated that with people. But the goal through this project was not to, make significant changes to people's property. So if your property was residential, a certain residential zone, we tried to match that residential zone in the new zoning bylaw.
Through the chair, thank you for that.
I don't want to say it in an open, I don't want to say meeting, that people's property, there isn't people that have had changes to their zoning, from the old one to the new one. But we've certainly tried to minimize the impact on residents and then work with them where people have identified, certain things with us, as far as say a setback from a building. And I just want to note for everyone's information, where something, if we create a legal non-conforming situation around say a setback, where they would, I'm just going to make this up and say they had to be 30 feet from a setback, and the zoning bylaw now says they have to be 35, and their building's 30 feet, they would be legal non-conforming. And then, if there's a situation that was needed, certainly staff would be bringing that back as a variance that would, make sense. But their building would be legal. We wouldn't create any legal situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Yeah, motion carried. Thank you. Next up is 10.2A. Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this next report is a report and bylaws related to the public hearing for the Beaufort OCP that was held on February 9th. So I would note that 11 members of the public attended. A number of questions and clarifications were brought up by the people at the meeting, and staff clarified those, and those are outlined in the report. Again, this bylaw and bylaw amendment is part of the OCP amendments through all 6 OCPs that relate to the zoning bylaw that we were just talking about, and the update. And staff recommend that the board proceed with second and third reading after receiving the public hearing minutes and the public hearing report. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Directors receive the public hearing report for the Beaufort OCP Plan Amendment Bylaw P.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that Board of Directors receive the public hearing minutes, of the amendment bylaw.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. That bylaw P1448, Beaufort Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw, be read a second time.
Seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
And finally, thank you, Chair, that bylaw P1448, Beaufort Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw, be read a third time.
And seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Alrighty, that brings us to item B. Mr. Eric?
Yeah, and just before I go to this one, there were some questions about where the sandwich boards were, and Alex was texting me. Just to let me, so I just wanted to let everybody know that the sandwich boards for the Beaver Creek OCP are on Compton Road and at the Beaver Creek Fire Hall. And the Sprout Lake OCP sandwich board advertising is going out today, and they will be at Faber Road and the highway, and at Lakeshore Road and Highway 4. Thank you. To go on to the next application. So this is the first one here we're dealing with here is a development variance application for 4375 Compton Road. So the applicant is applying for a variance for an accessory building to reduce the side yard setback in their A2 zoning from 15 feet to 6 feet. The Beaver Creek Advisory Planning Commission reviewed this on February 16th and supports the recommendation. And I would just note that this is a property where the zone, it's a small lot that has A2 zoning. So it's a 0.8 of an acre, and the A2 zoning minimum lot size is 5 acres. So the setbacks are intended for larger lots. And so the variance process is really the simplest way for this person to build their small accessory building, and staff recommend that the board proceed, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Comments? Go ahead, Dr. Roth.
I'll move that the Board of Directors consider issuing development variance permit BVE 22008, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act Section 499.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up is item C.
Thank you. So this is the first of 3 rezoning applications that are on the agenda today, and they're all for Beaver Creek. And I'm just going to go back to the first memo I talked about, the timeline memo. And I just want to note that all of 3 of these applications are highlighted in the memo as needing public hearings. And what we are proposing that all 3 of the applications will be considered at one public hearing, or to achieve this timeline. It's something that, we did 2 applications recently in one public hearing, and it certainly, I think it makes sense to do the 3 of these in one public hearing, and it helps us, manage the development application process. And that would correspond to the proposed public hearing on March 23rd that we have on the table. And I just wanted to highlight that for everybody here. So to go to the application itself, this is a property at 5605 Mercy Road. It is approximately 4 acres, and the applicant is applying to rezone to an RA3, which is a 0.6 acre minimum parcel size residential zoning, and they're proposing a 5-lot subdivision. The rezoning application that they're proposed complies with the official community plan. Again, this was also reviewed by the Beaver Creek Advisory Planning Commission, who supported the application moving forward. This property is in a development permit area. A portion of the property is on the edge of the Tsunami Inundation Development Permit area, and that's the portion of the property that's on the east half. And if this rezoning application was to go through, a development permit would be required as part of the subdivision approval process, as would parkland dedication. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions? Director Siga, please go ahead. You're still muted, Dr. Siga.
There we go.
There.
I don't know, I got a hand coming up and it won't unmute me. Sorry about that. I was just wondering about, we're trying to be cost effective in terms of infrastructure, and I'm just wondering if there is infrastructure in place for the water, septic and stuff in this area.
Certainly, good question. So Beaver Creek water lines do front on a couple of roads of this on this property. When they get to the subdivision stage, they would also be subject to development cost charges, which are applied to each individual new lot that's created, and that would offset the future capital costs within the Beaver Creek water district. And septic would be the responsibility of the developer and property owner. And one of the conditions that staff are recommending is that prior to adoption of the zoning bylaw, the property owner confirmed that the site is capable of providing septic based on a 0.6 acre minimum parcel size. So hopefully that answers your question.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. Director Roth, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move that bylaw 1456, Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be read a first time.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
I'll move that the public hearing for bylaw P1456 be delegated to the director for electoral area E, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
That the board of directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1456 is subject to confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the property is capable of accommodating on-site sewage disposal to a minimum of 0.6 acre density, meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item D, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this is another rezoning application for 5597 Strict Road. And the property owner is applying to rezone a portion of the property to RA3 district. It's a current RA2 district. So the current zoning allows a 1 acre minimum parcel size, and they want to rezone a portion of the property to 0.6 to facilitate a 4-lot subdivision, which would include a 2.7 acre remainder, so the area that's not part of the rezoning application. This property is also in the tsunami inundation zone, and the far east property may be slightly in a riparian area. And again, if this was to proceed to subdivision, development permits would apply at that stage, as well as parkland. And the APC reviewed this application and recommended proceeding. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Director Roth?
Okay. That bylaw P1470, Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be read a first time.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Boyko. Okay. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
That the public hearing for bylaw P1470 be delegated to the director for electoral area E, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Second. Thank you, Director Siga. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
That the board of directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1470 is subject to confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the property is capable of accommodating on-site sewage disposal to a minimum of 0.6 acre density, meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Siga. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. I think that takes us to the next item. Please go ahead, Mike.
Yes, so this is the third rezoning application for 6038 Kirkpatrick Road. They are applying to rezone a 2.0 acre parcel to allow for a 3-lot subdivision. The Advisory Planning Commission again reviewed this application and supports moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Director Roth?
That bylaw P1471, Regional District of Alberni-Playapot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be read a first time.
Thank you, Director Siga. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
That the public hearing for bylaw P1471 be delegated to the Director for Electoral Area E, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Thank you, Director Siga. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
That the Board of Directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1471 is subject to confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the property is capable of accommodating on-site sewage disposal to a minimum of 0.6 acre density, meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Seconded by Director Siga. Comments? Director Bacosia?
What happens in a case that it's not accepted by the on-site wastewater practitioner?
Yeah, good question. So if we got something back that it couldn't meet, say 0.6, which has happened on occasion, so they may assess it would it meet a 1 acre minimum parcel size, for example, and then we could look at adjusting the zone to say RA2, which with a 1 acre minimum parcel size, and if it's not capable of meeting the sewage regulations, at all, then it wouldn't move forward, and it shouldn't move forward. I think making sure, one of our goals as staff, an important principle is making sure that the basic infrastructure requirements can be met on properties. So thank you. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 10.3. This is for all directors. Please go ahead, Mike.
Okay, last one. This is a letter from Terry Shannon and a report from staff from Amy Needham regarding the Council for Agricultural Water Supply. And so staff are recommending that the board make the Council for Agricultural Water Supply a permanent working group. This council or working group was established for 2 years to support agriculture producers' need for adequate water supply. And again, I think this working group or this council meets the objectives of both the Alberni Valley Agriculture Plan from 2011, as well as the board strategic plan, and really is allowing the agriculture producers to provide input into water. It's both the report and the letter mentioned the drought conditions and sort of the need for water, especially through the drier summer months. And so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Mike, I just want to address that. I attended the last meeting back, I think in middle of January for this working group, and it was well put together. There was a lot of people involved, and they had the sentiment that they wanted to keep it going. Now, I haven't been involved with it for the past years, but just attending the last meeting and talking to some individually, it was a useful project. And with the current changes that are happening, we're having dry seasons in different time periods than we expected. The last 2 summers have been quite evident of that. And we don't know if we're going to have extended spring this year or what's going to happen. But it is an important issue in the valley, especially in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? I think I would only note that water supply has always been something that has been mentioned in communities that are either agricultural themselves or adjacent to agricultural communities. So I'm wondering if this is a mechanism that can help inform future planning matters, especially like that sort of thing, because it's hard to have a conversation about whether or not a development should go in and people are worried about, is there enough water for that many houses to be built, et cetera, et cetera. And having a group that could touch on this seems like it would be very helpful. We'll go maybe Mike and then to Dr. Roth.
No, I agree. And while this one is intended, to be primarily agriculture, there is some opportunities to expand and utilize sort of the knowledge and expertise, and also leverage some grant opportunities. Well, one of the primary goals would be to have an observation well within the Alberni Valley to monitor some water tables. So yeah, it's a good idea and certainly can help with our planning work.
Thanks, Dr. Roth.
Just like to mention, in the interior of BC, quite often that you'll find two water mains side by side, and they don't have to use treated water. That doesn't have to come from the municipal supply. So it could be an existing grant or water. I don't know if we gave up the one on the Somas River, but perhaps there, if we could use that. So there's lots of good ideas out there anyways. I'd like to support this or make the move. Okay. Do you need me to read it out or? Okay. That the ACRD board make the Council for Agricultural Water Supply a permanent working group of the ACRD with support from the agricultural support workers to continue efforts to secure water supply for primary producers food production in the ACRD, utilizing the upcoming provincial watershed security strategy funds to achieve deliverables such as increasing water storage and installing an observation well in the Alberni Valley.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Minions. And then we'll go right to Dr. Boyko. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question for Mike about the observation well, because a lot of our water in the rural areas comes from either shallow dug wells, such as what I have, and some people have wells 200-300 feet deep or 100 feet deep. Where would a good observation well go to have a representation of the entire valley if the water levels change between properties and areas quite drastically? Thank you.
And I wouldn't be able to answer that question now. And we would want to work. We would want to work with the working group and the producers on where would be the first one to tackle. And funding available, there may be need for additional ones, but that's something we would want to work with the Water Council on where it would best be located.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us into item 11. 11.1 is staff reports. Are there any reports that Daniel or members of the board would like to pull out?
I think we should pull out item 11.1D, just with regard to the active transportation grants. So on this one, there's a report simply for information to the board, but all to say that we have received the BC Active Transportation Grant for $500,000. That would go towards the multi-use path that was brought up earlier. So at long last, I think Terry identified 6 years in the making. So this does complete the funding that we would require. The report does indicate that we are 90% complete in terms of the drawings, and we do have Class A construction cost estimates. So we're relatively confident with the cost, but we are also cognizant of the realities that we are in when it comes to work, particularly on the West Coast. There are always some surprises for us. And so the report there just speaks to how it is that we would address any twists and turns. I know Jenny has just turned on her camera. She may want to flag a few things as well. If I may, I'll hand it to her, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, today I just get to talk about money, so I can't help myself. This is great news. And just as a minor update, we are hoping, because we are so prepared for this project, we're hoping to get the request for tender out shortly within the next week or so, and to be back to the board possibly in April with a recommendation. Hopefully the costs will be coming in pretty good. So that's the update, and happy to answer any questions.
We'll go with Dr. Steer and then Dr. Siga and then Dr. Minions and then Dr. Haggard. No? Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Once again, kind of wonderful news, of course. And I just had, and I was going to bring this up during the financial update, financial plan update. I was just curious with obviously the construction will be underway. How will it be structured in terms of the maintenance aspect of the multiple use path from the ACRD's perspective on this?
So we've been waiting for the funding news to know that we're going to be constructing this. And now we get to, while we're constructing it, put together a comprehensive report on governance in regional parks. All that to say, we do not know, but we are going to provide options. Where do we want this to live? Do we want it to be in regional parks long term? Do we want to combine it with our other multi-use path section? So we will get back to you. And luckily, we've got until March 31st to have a trail to start maintaining. 2024, that is.
Dr. Siga, go ahead.
Thank you. This is the piece, I believe, that goes through an area that was identified as a migratory route for frogs that Barb Beasley was working on. So I'm wondering if she could be included in the planning around this, and perhaps some students from the high school, just because I think it's important to involve youth. Sorry, maybe Tony Bustle could address that.
Through the chair, I think I might follow up with you directly just to get some contacts. I know that we are working with our engineers and consultants on the environmental sensitivity, but let's follow up and see what we can do.
Thank you.
That whole exchange reminded me of the discussions we used to have at the treaty table about intermediary jumping slugs. So that being said, I think the next person we have up is Dr. Means. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Congratulations to the West Coast on getting this funding. Really exciting. And every time I'm out there, I'm always so impressed by the path and how many people are using it. So you guys have done a really great job getting to this point, and I'm glad that we've been able to support that work as a board. And I just wanted to share that the city also received about $500,000 of funding to finish the Roger Creek Trail system, which is really exciting for us as well. We've actually submitted that grant application, I think, about 8 times. So 8 times a charm. And we're really excited that project. It's a really well-used trail in our community. It links a lot of our kind of core values, and it also will connect to the Key to Key path once that's constructed, which we received $2.5 million funding for. So great to see so much focus on active transportation in our community. Thank you.
Thanks. It's weird to hear you say key correctly. Anyone, really. A lot. It makes me think of Queequeg and the Pequot. Anyway, any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. I think that's it. Do we have a motion to receive the reports? Thank you, Dr. Roth. Seconded by Dr. Beck. Thank you. Looks like a cigar, Bob. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Member reports. Okay, that brings us to item 11.3, member reports. 11.3A is the 911 Corporation. Director Beckett, any report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was the second meeting of the North Island 911 board that I attended. Well run, well organized, very impressed with the organization. Just a couple points. The ACRD accounts for 15% of the call volume. We rank 3rd in call volume for distribution. Contract costs will increase by 3.9% over 2022. And with the implementation of Next Gen 911 technology, which is federally mandated, we'll see an increase of 6% in 2024 and 2025. And the Next Gen 911, the technology, I recognize that the cost is a challenge, but the technology is amazing. It essentially, and I'm going to dumb it down because that's just how I value information, is that it allows cell phones to identify their location when people are calling 911. It allows for enhanced technology to include people sending videos, photos, and text. And it's can be used to provide enhanced information back to all of our first responders. So that's it in a nutshell. We meet every 2 months, so stay tuned for my next report.
Thank you. Next up is the Vancouver Island Regional Library. I don't think Director Cote is here. Renee?
Yeah, she had no report to make at this time.
Thank you. Next up is the Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Minions.
No report to make.
Air Quality Council. Dr. Roth.
No report.
West Coast Aquatic. Director Steer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a quick, as we had an excellent presentation last board meeting from Tawny, I won't go into all the details, but just to say that there is the opportunity for the ACRD. I believe that meeting date and time has been posted for input into the coastal marine strategy for BC. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. I'm looking at my counterpart on the West Coast there, Nasiga, if just as long as she knew that that those dates and times, if you hadn't seen them, we can certainly get those to you, as I believe you are the alternate for West Coast Aquatic. But all board members, please, if you can attend, please do. And that is all.
Thank you. Okay, next up is AVICC, Director Cote. So, Director Cossier.
Yes, Penny said there's a convention on April 14th to 16th in Nanaimo. So if anybody wants to attend, that'll be the dates.
Thank you. Next up is the Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee. Director Roth.
No report yet.
Sawakin Public Advisory Group. Director Roth.
Yes, I attended a meeting on February 9th. It was my first meeting, so some of it I didn't understand. But basically, Hawaiian gave a talk on the integrated resource management plan. And pretty much they use LiDAR and you can give a really up close view of the forest. And they're going to use it for future plans, not just for forestry, but for the community. And they're looking at all parts of the forest, not just the trees, lots of animals. It was really impressive. I'll learn more. There's a lot to learn there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roth. If I may add a supplemental, because I'm broiled in this. So the integrated resource management plan was something agreed upon by not just Hawaii, but 2 other nations as well. This was in response to the China Creek, the Fairy Creek type protests, and the conversation about how old growth forests on the coast and in BC is under threat. My nation, has never held that was ever the case. And as a result, we've embarked on a planning process to prove that the current coastal forestry practices are safe. And when they're being directly involving First Nations, that it's those nations that should be helping to make the decisions on keeping forestry alive, because it's something that we depend upon. It's not just Port Alberni, it's not just other communities on the West Coast, it's all of us. So I think that's partly what we'd like to put forward. It's not entirely done yet, but the integrated resource management plan is being undertaken more by the nation rather than by Sawakin, which is like the operating company. But it's all kind of one, as the name states. Thank you, Dr. Roth. Next up, we have the Agricultural Development Committee, Dr. Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. We had a meeting on February 14th. One of the big items was we had a presentation regarding a potential ACRD agricultural support person, whether this should be a full or part-time position, whether it should exist at all, whether it should be in a new agricultural department or sit under the planning department. So that's still up for debate, but one thing I heard about was a climate change service was presented to us, and I've never heard of that before. So just wondering what exactly that was. Another big topic was food security. And people are concerned that the new zoning bylaws are restricting the amount of animals they can have. They want to make sure we have food security in the valley. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next up, we have the Redfish Restoration Society, formerly known as the Central West Coast Forest Society, Dr. McEwen.
No report.
We have other reports here from the Heritage Commission. I'm wondering if these are actually Dr. Cote, is she still involved? Or is it someone else? Yeah? Okay, but these are written reports, so we'll just add them to the reports, and we won't make Renee read them out or anything. Okay. Okay. Could we- Renee, would you like to move to receive the reports?
I'll move to receive the report.
Thank you, Director Corsia, seconded by Dr. Ross. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Right, no unfinished business, no late business. Question period, was there anything to responses?
No, Mr. Chair, there are no submissions to our email address, and we have no participants on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Well, I think this is the end of our live broadcast now. We'll be going in camera. Normally what the chair does is read out the reasons that we'll be going in camera, and I think there's only one reason. So I will move to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. And I'll thank you all for attending, and we'll see you again. Thanks, Mike. See you later. Thank you. And could we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.